Sorry, we're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
At Backlash? Backlash. At Backlash.
At Backlash.
At Backlash.
What is happening? What is correct? Why is my phone going now?
Backlash.
Hold on, my daughter's texting me. She's
At
pushing her luck.
Backlash. At Backlash.
Backlash.
That'd be bad, Dad. That'd be bad, Dad.
Backlash.
Backlash. Oh, I'm going to scroll up. Fable, what is the correct Steam train? Welcome on. Thank you very much for the 7 streams streak as well. McKinn's, Bouchy, Flamash, what's the correct? Nuclear, what's going on? That boss progress is loud as fuck. Flamash, I am here in the exact same level as you, and it's not loud as fuck. You
7
need to get
minutes.
tested.
7 minutes is all I can spare to play
Hey,
with
what's
you.
happening? Silent Hill 2, it's horrible and brilliant at the same time. Horrible and brilliant at the same time. Tomahawk, what's happening? My bald champion. Yes. Yes, I'm the bald champion, and Flamash is Pineapple King. Now, it's really loud as fuck compared to the rest of it. It's on the exact same audio key. How is it loud as fuck? Triple H is a phony. He is. He's a big phony. Big phony. Why is it Flamash has to come on and always ruin the audio? Fucking flim flam Babylon, hey. Wild man himself. Wild man himself. I'll turn the volume down just for you, Flamash. I'll turn it way, way down so no one else can enjoy it because you're kicking off. Your Twitch showed me having a shaving device. Yep, that's what it is. My ads will promote baldness. We're proud to be bald. That's what it is. A head shaving device? Yes, that's what it is. I don't even think that is the case, but I'm glad that it did. I'm glad that it did because bald people are a lot more aerodynamic. And
have you heard of the critically acclaimed
on sunny days, we can use our head to
MMORPG
blind
Final
seagulls.
Fantasy XIV? With an expanded free trial, which you can play through the entirety of A Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heaven's Ward, Stormblood and Shadowbringer's expansion
Thank
is
you,
up
Teddy.
to level 80 for free with no
Hi, Bald.
restrictions on playtime.
Teddy is also proud to be bald. He is also bald with a beard. He is a wonderfully beautiful man. And thank you very much for the buddies. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Welcome on, folks. What is the crack? How are we getting on? I am just cracking up with my daughter here. She has been annoying me all day to try and stay out with her. But she broke the rules last night, and she's not allowed, so she has to be in late. So I've brought the hammer down upon her, and she's not too happy about it at all. Not too happy at all. So During the last week or so, we were doing a fundraiser as well because I was doing a charity walk today and went and did the walk. Walked for 2 hours. It was great. Lovely, lovely weather. To jail with her. Fucking indeed. Less time brushing hair, more time for loved ones. Jail tomorrow. Yep, Gabe, you're 100% right. I can't argue with that math. I can't argue with it. How'd it go? Went really, really well. So we raised 325 quid. So I appreciate you all. Like it was massive, and you're so generous. Thank you so much. Well, his daughter written back, fine, I'll come in at 9:30. Huffing. She's huffing with me, and she learns that from me because I'm the world's greatest huffer. See if I fall out me, you won't know because I'll be huffing. Most people don't know I'm fighting them because I just don't say anything. I just go off and tot in the corner to myself. But the issue is, she's looking to stay out quite late with her friends. I'm streaming, so I can't go lift her. I don't want her walking home at night because it's dark. I want to actually just talk about this conversation I had with her earlier because I find it fucking hilarious. Even though she won't and she'll be annoyed. Can I please stay out till 10:30? Because it's embarrassing, blah blah blah. I was on no chance you have to come home. She's all, but it doesn't get dark until 12. And so where in the world do you live where it doesn't get dark until 12? And so I've looked it up. Sunset is at 11 minutes past 10 tonight. Yesterday it was 11 o'clock. No, that's not how science works. Cleo, my darling, my pups, what has happened? You're the good one. You're the one who listens. She's the good one. Is this why you ignore me? I don't ignore you. Weirdly enough, I talk to you on Discord more than most other people. The last few days, I've talked to you more than Hook. And Hook talks to me all the time. Does this tomorrow too? Yes, I know. So it ain't getting any later. It is not. Yeah, weirdly, we have spoken a lot lately. Yeah, it's been peculiar and odd. How was that? How was the noise now, Flummush? Was it better? Are you satisfied? Or did you just not hear it that time? I appreciate it. So yeah, I have a t-shirt here. I was a team member today. So it was Relay for Life. So it's a 24-hour walk. But obviously, the same people aren't going to do the whole 24 hours. Everybody does what's in me and Mancilia did from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. today. And that was good. It's good. And thank you, folks, for helping raise money as well. So it all goes to a good cause. It's research. It was Cancer Research UK. Yeah, hit was better, far better balanced. Well, Mosh is clearly drunk. Sierra, welcome on. I apologize for your husband's words. Yeah, it was better, far better balanced. He sobered up. It's fine. He's sober now. It's okay. It's all good. Not drunk. Not had a drink tonight. He has had too much hot sauce, and his mouth is affecting the way he types. Apologies. Sarah, you're going to have to smell that front bathroom after he destroys it again after he cleaned it. But yeah, we're playing through Silent Hill 2 at the moment, and do it, lady. It's weird. I apologize for him all the time. Don't make a change for someone else apologizing. It is a fucking brilliant game, but it is the most unsettling, squelchy game I've ever played in my fucking life. No, actually, maybe Madison would be the most unsettling. It's definitely the most squelchy. I haven't played a squelchier game, and I think that's the best way to describe it. It's squelchy, especially that I haven't played a game in a long time where the audio was so good at telling the story. Like, just all the ambient noises, the music, just the things that you hear in the background and kind of really set you off. And sometimes there's nothing even there, and it's just kind of really, really freaks you out. It's like putting your hand in slime and pumping it in and out repeatedly. Yeah, that's a very apt way of just describing it. Just fist in the slime. Exactly. That's what Silent Hill 2 Remake is like, and I'm enjoying it. So what does that say about me? Fuck, who knows? Cleo, what does it say about me? She doesn't know. She's judging me. But then again, she's a border collie, so she always sits there and judges me. And it's fine because she is better than me in every single way, so, makes sense. But how is everyone else's Saturday going? It is a lovely, lovely day today. Because it's so nice today, I know tomorrow I'm going to have to do the garden, which I'm not looking forward to, but I'm going to have to do it. But apart from that, I've had a really good day. I don't think of whatever else. Can't even think. It is Father's Day tomorrow, which will be very, very interesting because I think my two have forgotten. So I'll either get nothing or I would get a handwritten card. Squelch Hill, that's it. That's it. Touch at the Hill wasn't selling after all. It was just needed someone to stick their fist into it, and that's all it needed. Squelch Hill. I ordered myself new sunglasses as well, new prescription sunglasses, and lo and behold, it's sunny and they haven't arrived yet. And as soon as it starts raining, I bet you they show up in the post. So I'm just going to sit there in the house wearing sunglasses in the rain. James like the fist random holes. He does do that a while out as well. There's a lot that James does in this game that I would never intentionally want to do. There's times he sees just big holes in the wall and there's stuff dripping out of it, and James like, I'm going to stick my hand in here. Now, to progress the game, you kind of have to, because there's a puzzle item or a key or something in there. But if that was me in real life, I would still be in the very first starter room and I would never have left. I would have turned around and not gone in the sound hall. That's what I would have done. Oh, there's a toilet, looks like Flemish. Ah, that bit as well. There was a bit as well where there was a toilet filled up to the brim with poop or blood or both. And he decided to stick his hand into it. And the dirty fecker and everything pulled up his sleeve, full shirt and everything, just in the toilet. You would at least have taken off your overshirt and pulled up your t-shirt and all, and then maybe do it, because you could wash your hand then afterwards. But no, clothes and everything. Sammy, what's happening? What is the story? Mr. Worldwide. I appreciate that. He went elbow deep. He did. He went the whole way in. He did. He didn't even phase him. So it says more about James than anything, really, doesn't it? If James opens up some sort of crepe or some sort of breakfast bodega or some sort of stall, do not buy food off that man. He clearly has hygiene issues. He is a sexual deviant. He is. He 100% is. James likes a gamble, likes a thrill. James is a wild man. James changed all his passwords the other day to Kenny. So his passwords are now Kenny Loggins, because that man lives in the danger zone. I'm not joking with that. Look, gee, fucking, I haven't even started the game and he's already coming on with spoilers. You're a wild man, flim flam bam lam. There's an ongoing joke with this sound hall playthrough where Flamash is just sitting there vibrating in his chair because he wants to say things, and I've warned him not to. But he just says them anyway, so. I think the main problem with Flamash is he knows loop theory is real in this game, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. It's the same with Raccoon City 2 in the Resident Evil games. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like that it's true. Cracks up with. And now he's typing at this moment in time, but the developers turned around and confirmed that loop theory isn't canon. There, you can tell me, was he typing that? Was he typing that? Was he typing it? Go tell me, he was definitely typing it. He was 100% typing it. That man was typing that. He was, wasn't he? He was typing that. He's not typing anything now. Oh, look at him. He's deleting it. I have a camera right behind him. He's deleted it now. He's just going to type prick or dickhead or I hate you. One of those things. Whilst he sups on a bowl of slurpy pineapples. Right, I'm going to go to the game now. I had gone to the wrong screen previously and changed it too quick whilst I was in the middle of that animation, so it kind of did it weird. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Why are you turning around to your wife, Flamash, and saying, how does he know what I'm doing? That's weird. It's weird that you would say that. Weird. Oh, I forgot. I haven't put my light on. I don't know if I need it. I'm here. Look, what's happening? What's happening? Level 20 Paladin. Already? Evening? What's the story? Progress bar is quite helpful, because I figured before that you were battling a boss and probably had no idea what level they were at. And so what happens with the boss is each time you beat him, he goes up one level. And the way it works it out, it times the level amount by 50, and that's the boss's HP. Halo shield noise. It was louder, but Flemish complained about the audio again. So I had to lower it because he wasn't happy about it. He kicked off. What I've also done, I've done a few things this week. By this week, I mean like today. I have done a check-in chart. So I now have a list of the highest levels of people checking in. At the moment, it's Flemash and Tomahawk, followed by Happy Irish, Sierra, and Hook. And I also did one with the Hall of Fame as well, where I went back and actually found every raid I had on and looked at how many times people raid on, which is pretty cool. It's interesting to see. Notice Hook isn't high up on that list now. He says he's my best friend, but does he ever raid me? No. Oh Lord, the walls made of tarp of somewhat. Well, weird. It is odd. It's peculiar. Maybe we're painting. Maybe we're painting. How dare you call me? Maybe we're painting. Oh, was that the wrench was supposed to do? Right, okay. Can I take a potion because my health seems a wee bit low? I see you didn't get burnt today. No, I was fully... I sent you a picture. I had a hat on the entire time. Oh, this is the picture I sent Hook. Picture. There we go. Hat on the entire time.
Oh, playtime is over.
Thank you
How
very much
fortunate
for the raid.
for you.
What is happening? We have just started as well. How did the rest of Skyrim go? Or the Elder Scrolls? Or old books? Miss Dio, welcome in. Ashnickfire. Nandrism, welcome in, folks. Thank you very much for the raid. What is happening? Raid. I forgot to copy and paste the message.
I don't think I've introduced myself yet.
No, you didn't. I didn't get it. Oh, you didn't get it? Oh, well, I must have sent it to Flamish, because, you know, I've been messaging him more than you this week. So, there you go. But how did the rest of your stream go? What is happening? Skyrim was fun. Finished the Dawnguard DLC. Nice one. Nice. You didn't send me shit. I did send you something the other day, and you didn't appreciate it. Pineapple King. Pineapple King. So, anybody has been in here before, anytime that I get rated, you get added to my fame. So, there's a Hall of Fame for the month. And I go, you should be on there. There you are, there in the red. In the red. Thank you very much. What a stacked month we've had so far for June. This has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much again for choosing me for your raid. I really appreciate it. I was laughing the whole time. I know. Doing pretty well. How are you? I am doing great. I went on a charity. I was showing a picture as you rated on there. I went on a charity walk for cancer earlier on today, and it was good to get out and walk about, because see, if left on my own devices, I will just sit at my desk and never ever move. I mean, there's times Hook just lands to your front door and you're like, no, go away. But I set up this one, and then I also set up this one where I went back and looked at all the raids I've ever got and was able to do a top 10 list. And that's quite cool. Fable is on there. Look, there's Fable. Here, Duchess Cats, Burton. All good stuff. All good stuff. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go back in the Silent Hill. This game is horrifying.
We're going streaking
through
through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
I'm due a visit, you know. No, you're not. And I get 5-stream streak. Thank you very much. Oh, Tomahawk has beat Big Boss Robinson. Big Boss will be after that later. He'll be after that later. I just want to double check and see if my daughter has texted me again after the drama from earlier. She is not a happy bunny with me. I have been a bad dad. Right, James, and this is a Konami game as well. And why did they not put that tune in? We don't know. Oh, this is great. Let's get it. Great. Final Fantasy X ballad music. That surprises me for you. I love Final Fantasy X. It's because the effect, you know, the shattering and going into the battle, that's Final Fantasy X. So that's why that's like that. And then my alert system is Resident Evil. I'm all over the place about my games. The 76-time champion. I'm another GOAT. I should track that as well. It was really put me on the idea of starting to track the overall stats, which is kind of cool. Wait, what'd you do? What do you mean, what'd I do? What'd you do? Went pretty good. All the hacks and slashing. Ooh. Right, so how is this holding up his weight? This is just chicken wire. I would have gone right there. Can I confirm he did indeed do the hacks and slashing? Awesome. Ooh. Walk that. Nope. Oh, it's... Nope. Run. James, run, you fool. Oh, I didn't like that. Seems friendly. Oh, the Mandarin. Is that what that's called? Orange, you glad you ran into them? An interesting fact about the man, and I'll share later. Or not. Maybe don't. Got a lurk while I edit. Ooh, did you buy a new laptop? They're so friendly. They seem friendly. Small and orange. Right, well, I didn't like them. Is that a cock? No, it's not. But that was a wee winky there at the bottom. So it says a little known fact about the enemy. You have a little known fact about every enemy. Not yet. Quite possibly next month. Perfect purchase. Ooh, nice one, Tomahawk. Tomahawk, for anybody that doesn't know, he is one part of High Scores, High Stakes. Whatever. No, that's the wrong thing. Tomahawk is one part of High Scores, High Stakes, the #1 competitive PlayStation podcast. That's him, Cardinal Smith, and Mr. Lova Lova, and are we back in the garden? Right, okay. They're good. In this game, yes, I love this game and everything about it. This game has a lot of new friends, everyone else, and they're good for and they're good for giving directions. They're good for whapping you over the head and spewing you with stuff, which is a lot like Flamash. Ah, there's somebody's jumper. We're going to steal that and wear it. Can't have it back because it's ours now. I love DBD. I've only recently started playing DBD, and it's actually because of Tomahawk. I started playing a bit with him. I'm not very good at it, but it's intense. Right, I don't want to go in there yet. I don't want to explore here. It is freaky as fuck. Oh, this is the same place we were before. Right, okay. Oh, why am I back here? Ooh. No, newspaper. Thought it was something good. Definitely not as good as yourself, but there's but extra to getting lost. I mean, over yonder. Going over yonder's next to the thingamabob. And the whatchamacallit. Don't forget about the whatchamacallit. It has all come full circle. Well, that's locked now, so I can't get back out there. That's fine. Sounds like my callouts in the multiplayer games. Have I ever played a multiplayer game with you, Fum Flam Bam Lam? How did the rest of your stream of First Light go earlier on today as well? Oh, we haven't. Ooh. Oh, that's your... Oh, God. He's on me. Help. No, that's not your callout. Your callout is... Was it fuck him in the dick or something? There's something like that you keep shouting, and it's weird. I'm at the perch, and Thor needs a tinkle. He usually... Yeah, that one as well. You usually shout out too. Which, I don't know, is an invitation? We shall see. We shall see. And the great Northern Ireland streamer meetup, we shall see. But that's funny, because you can, especially Flamash and Sierra are a married couple, and he shouts these whilst they're playing co-op games on stream, and you just see Sierra just slowly look at the look at the camera, and just turn and stare at him as if, what are you talking about? Casually and consistently said, yeah, that is also true. Oh. Who the fuck's this? She was blonde a wee second ago. Did that plenty yesterday. I know I was on your stream for Resident Evil 6. That looks like such a fun game, which is the next one me and Hook are going on to as well, which I'm looking forward to.
Are you feeling better?
Knifey McStabberson.
This place is different from what I remember.
I remember the graphics being worse. Yes, this is the remake.
Things never really stay the same, do they?
I guess not.
My name's James. I'm Wish.com Leon Kennedy.
I don't think she's here anymore, James.
Who?
My mama.
Flamash says,
Doesn't-
finished Leon's campaign yesterday and did one chapter of Chris, and Stacy got motion sick and we had to stop.
She doesn't want to see me anymore.
That's fair. That's fair.
Why would you think that?
Who's Stacy? You mean Sarah? Docs of people from Plan Bannerland?
Anyway, I'm happy to see you.
Creep. Creep.
Happy to see me?
Alive, I mean.
Oh. Yeah. I better get going.
You still don't want me to go with you? If we stick together, we might just make it out of here.
Out of where?
This town. Silent Hill.
No, it's fine.
Okay, we guys had some trauma. And it's the longest campaign, right? Okay, the rest of them are shorter.
Oh,
I could either play this again.
you didn't happen to see a little girl around here, did you?
I want to play this. It is very, very good. It's a fun game. The campaigns get
little
gradually
girl?
shorter.
Yeah,
Just like my patients. Because I'm a doctor for smart.
Angela? Are you alright? Angela?
No,
How long are we talking?
please.
This one? You thought you were going to say
You
a
shouldn't
different
be
P word?
here.
No, I'm not that crass.
Angela, it's okay.
No, don't touch me!
Ooh. Definitely not had a good time that we girl. Pencil. Not much. I don't really go on for the pencils too much. Now, there is a great website you should go to if you want a good pen. It's called penisland.com. Tends to get shorter as you sharpen them. That is also true. That is true. For the partner, it's 8 to 10. Ooh, that's not too bad. That's 2 streams there. Heck, that's 2 4-hour sessions. Although if we're doing 3-hour sessions, maybe 3. Read. My patient buried it here. I knew but did nothing. It made me uneasy to have such a thing near. Near. I wasn't looking for the truth. I was looking for tranquility. I also saw that thing. I fled, but the old society was sealed. No one dares to approach that place. Now I offer you the key. Do you wish to stop, James? I pray that if you still don't wish to stop, James, alright, okay. Pray the Lord have mercy on your soul. Stationery store? Yes. Are you frequent visitors of that place, Leyoric? I might own that place. But it also depends on how long you can play per streams. Yeah, we're probably about 3 hours of gameplay, I would say. And stream with hooking just only an hour of gameplay. You know what? See, for all the grief, it hasn't been too bad recently. I do recommend motion sick tablets. I don't. The only time I ever get motion sick is in a car. I've never got it playing a game. Yeah, it's not that long. So 5 streams for us. Only 5. Whole game's about 25-ish hours solo. That's not too bad. Love stationery. See, that's the thing about stationery. It's not going to be affected by the AI up stationery. It's not going anywhere. What about it makes you sick? Camera angles and the screen shaking. See, that wouldn't affect me too much. Well, I don't think you see me just barfing on stream. Like 60 hours solo. Hey, tell you what, you're getting your money's worth though, aren't you? Yeah, what was being played by a slug? Mouse flipper makes me motion sick. Oh my god, really? I like that game. I think it's good. You know what, let's check our map. Oh, well, this is where we were before, wasn't it? Let's go to the Historical Society, so it's up the street, then right. What are we, is there any stuff first? Is there any things? Oh, this way. Just make sure. Make sure it's right. Did you ever find the Jack? I didn't. I wonder if I can go back. Go back, Jack. It's a pain to enjoy game. What about that makes you sick? It could be the first personage. You can find it if you want to tell you or just explore. I'll just explore. I'll just go. This was a lot better when I was in the daytime though. Never found Jack. Did you get a handle on that? See, the problem is Rose wouldn't let him on the door, so that's why he never got out. A window I didn't smash? Ridiculous. Several windows I didn't smash. What was past Leyoric even thinking? Are you winning, lad? I am winning. I'm making loads of noise in the hills. They're not fucking silent no more. Put a palette cleanser right there. I have no idea, because other sim games of first person, you're okay with it. Could be just like the speed of the motion or something on it. The card game shop thingy-majiggy. Yeah, that is a good one. Well, if I was looking for a jack, are we talking like a car jack? We are talking a car jack. Thank you very much for checking in. Summoner today. Ooh. Up to me. I can go back in here as well. Okay, I'll say nothing. Wait a second. I summon Arc. Can I show you something? Ooh, that sounds a bit dodgy. That sounds a bit inappropriate. Check the rooms of the motel. Sammy Dabby Doo, thank you very much for checking in. All the windows on the lower level specifically. Beware, I have a pipe. Affects your TV. Is this one? Okay, that hat. And then on the wall, the torn paper. Hmm? That's a symbol in the save point from Silent Hill 3. Oh, because of the loop theory. Ah, I get you. I get you. Thank you very much for the alert. Meaning they were there before James came to this point. Right, okay. Because of loop theory. I get it. I was already on all here. Not because of loop theory. Damn you. No. You've just confirmed it. You have given us the evidence for loop theory. Thank you very much for the Bam Bam Lamp. I appreciate it. Just tell me where the car jack is now, because I want to continue on with the game. Somehow, because people keep mentioning it, leads to the Raccoon C2. It does. So, well, you know what? So Flemish told us. I would assume it would be maybe underneath a car or something. So on your way to the historical, there's a garage on the left-hand side of the road. It's there. Fuck's sake, so I would have found it anyway, going on my way. This way. You also could have found it the first time you were here. Oh, I wasn't going that way. This is so fucking foggy. Shockingly foggy. I know there's a mod as well that take all the fogginess off the game, and I have seen pictures of it and it just looks so weird. Because you can just see for miles. For miles and miles. Someone's Amazon parcel. Oh, this must be every. Fucking at it again, aren't they? Shenanigans. What's this over here? No, really, just background stuff. Okay. A bus. You stand for 15 minutes waiting for one, and 3 show up at once. It's always the way. Boss. No. I always love watching them YouTube videos as well. People, they buy like an old bus and they do it up and turn on the camper and stuff. And I'm like, I would love to be able to do that. I just don't think I would have the technical know-how or the patience to do it. It does look really cool. I do kind of feel though it has to be people who maybe have done something like that before. Like I have, the most I've done is I have not refurbished, but I always did all the repairs and stuff in the caravan when we had that. But there we go. There's the jack. Can I climb on there? No. Now to return? No. No way. Seriously. No. Why do I feel that something's going to happen when I return here now? You seem very, very keen on me coming back with this jack. Maybe it's a bad thing. Maybe it's a bad thing you're looking to do. If you go to early in the game, get a fight. See, I knew that. I knew that. I knew this. It was all in my head. Oh, I have to fight loads here now, but if I come here later on in the game, I don't have to fight them. I know the crack. There's no urgency in James. Like, this is not a fast run. This is a slight jog. It's a step above a power walk. The man is not in a hurry. He's like, yeah, I gotta go save my wife. Are you in a hurry to do so? Maybe. Although I did sit last night, I played about 2 hours of Final Fantasy VII Remake. It was one of the ones where I was raging. I never had VOD. You know, I wasn't uploading VODs to YouTube. So I sat doing it last night, played it without any audio. Yeah, I just played it gameplay only. Just so I could upload the gameplay of it. Thing is, I'll just play through it. I'll just do it for the story and I'll put it in easy mode. And I'm worried now it might be a bit too easy. Thank you, Flim Blam Bam Lam. This is handy for all the... Just don't shoot the nurses' faces then. Just shoot all the faces. That's the rules. Caffeinated Gengar, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate you. Look at you make your way to the RPD.
I don't think I've introduced myself yet.
Well, you have now, so it's all good. It's all fine, Leon. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Leon's a white warrior, isn't he? Right, okay. Happy days. Sort of. Thank you very much. Right, we'll make our way forward now. Got a little bit more ammo. The game seems to be giving you a lot of ammo. Might not be a good sign. No, it is not. No. No, I anticipate that I'm going somewhere even more horrible than the hospital, because the hospital was not a very nice place. Maybe a sewer? Or I was going to say a school, but they did a school in the first one, didn't they? Not going to be a school. The thing is, as well, I think if you golden path this game, you might not get as much ammo. You know, it is about the explorer. There's a bunch of ammo in this game. Right, okay, there we go. Before, I don't mention, I had like 400 handguns, 60 shotgun, and maybe 40 rifle. Also, there's a rifle in this. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. You've now told me it. Sierra Glariton with malicious intent for me, please. You played the OG? I played the OG millions of years ago. I am an old man. I am old as fuck. Pete's Bolorama. But did we miss a bowl, Molly? Just shoot. See? See? Yeah, she knows it right. You're like 4 years older than me and you look at least 10? What? My god, 10 years old or 10 years older than you? The grief, I'm getting off the flim flam, man. To be fair, you decide whichever you prefer. Well, I don't think I look like a 10-year-old. If I do look like a 10-year-old, I'm a fucking 10-year-old who had a really hard life. Things have not gone well for this 10-year-old. I was already in here, wasn't I? I think that's where I got the car jack. What age are you? I am 42 next month. Ooh, what's up here? Oh, it's another thing from Loop Theory. He's 32. I wish he was 32. 10-year-old working over 20 years in the mines. Yeah, they advertised and they were looking for a miner and they spelt it wrong and the 10-year-old showed up. That's what happened. 42 is nothing, dude. Eh, feels like something. Feels like something. Save point in here. Oh, so supposed to come here, right? Okay. I don't know if there's any age I really miss. There was periods of my life which felt like it went past very quickly. Because the loopiest of theories, Sierra, you're 100% right. You know what? You're right in what you're saying, and I agree with your right to say it. I'd be happy to stay at 35.
Tell me what you want.
There we go.
Bitch. Oh, excuse me?
Sarah, what's happening? Steam Train has to come in here and do this.
What do you say?
Bitch.
No.
Sierra.
No. I'm not gonna give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
Please.
Starving. Apart from her dinner earlier and the dentist stick I gave her this morning, that dog is starved and she's got no food. Where is she though? There's her butts coconuts. There's her butts coconuts. What'd you get? What'd you get? That was Steam Train got you that one. Steam Train loves you the most. Your dog. There we go. She num their treat. Listen, I thought you could give her a treat. Sierra's now delegating the workout. There we go. Dog who got her treat. Shit, dude. Is the best of the girls. Big good lady. What's on here now? actually put a monster in here and call him Pinhead, but actually have it just bowling pins rather than actual Hellraiser guy. John Hellraiser guy was a cop with 3 days to retirement. First time you cared? Yeah, I know. It was all about them popper treats. Oh, these are old school. I remember the bowling alley beside us had these, like proper wee monitors and stuff. No, it's like touchscreen. Touchscreens, you're like, fuck touchscreens. Unforgettable in our old age. I wouldn't be saying that, kid. Was that it? There was nothing else in the bowl now.
Fucking diabolical.
Fucking. They'll knock the door next time you go out too, yeah. That could be a thing. Alright, okay. Didn't mark anything off in the Bolorama though, which I find weird. Bolorama. It's a fun word, I like saying it. I am probably one of the worst people in the world at bowling. I am so fucking horrendously bad at it. Not even funny. Oh, can I go here? No. James cannot walk through that wee tiny gap because of his big hips. When I looked, it wasn't available. If excuses were misses, we'd all have dessert.
Hey, stop! Why? I just don't get it. I always catch you fucking watching this sick shit. This is sickening.
These are all watching it. We caught you. You didn't think we would, but we did. Right. Is that where I'm supposed to be going? Right, that's the historical thing. Alright, I can't break one. But I can break everybody's car. I would love it if there was some sort of, like, town meeting, and they all come outside and find all their windows smashed and all their, like, health drinks, which I'm assuming is just a protein shake, have been stolen from the cars, and like, what the fuck? And then some mad boy James is just running around the town, just drinking all their health drinks and smashing everything, injecting himself with needles he finds everywhere. Last time it was true. Did you do the puzzle box in the hospital? Yes, I did. That's the one that has the key and then the two codes you have to put on. In the historical society. This doesn't seem too bad. Me and Flemish were in Blair Must Kill's chat last night as well, and she brought up a really good point. It was actually really funny because she mentioned another streamer who had a really, really nice voice and nice way about them, and how they would mention whenever they were talking about someone, they would say, oh, the hook said, wait till the end of this game to be James. Must be high off his face in the town, get pissed off at the damage he's done. And I was all, that sounds like Ian. Was that the internet? And she goes, it was the internet. And I was like, man's no birthday. Then we start talking about how lovely he is. Hopefully he didn't see it. Give me stuff. Whose stream was this? Claire Must Kill? Was it me and you? Was it? Also read the things in this area. I want that crossbow. You me? Oh, it's not a crossbow. Birds! The Lady of the Light. Unveiling of the 2 statues commemorating the local folktale. Also, why did that glass cabinet have a health drink? Why did someone decide what needs to go on here is some sort of stove-looking thing and a brand new health drink? The Little Baroness, The Maiden Voyage, 1916. It wasn't me. Who was it then? Oh, it was Akira. It was me and Akira. Picture. I think it's because every other chat I've been in today, at least, you have been in, also in there. Title unknown, author unknown. Well, at least he won the cup. Where's the health rank 100 years old? Is it out of date? Is it going to cause severe stomach cramps? We don't know. Let's go. Established in the 1850s. Remained operational until the 1900s. The mine played a key role in the regulation of Scientology. Do you know that the actual... This is actually based on a real town in the United States. I forget what you call it. It starts with a C. But there was an underground coal mine that went on fire in the town, and the fumes caused everybody to get sick, and it was so bad that the town is now abandoned. Brookhaven Hospital. Hospitals went from the great immigration area. Originally it was more of a shack, and since it's expanded a fully fledged medical establishment. New version of you and Ready. You really are? But fair play. Well, that's not good. But name former director of Brookhaven Hospital. Okie dokie. Not suspicious. And the town itself is still inhabitable, and there's people going, ooh, that looks not good. That looks like a wee hole, which isn't great. One local legends lay the light. The story tells of a woman who's accused of guilty witchcraft. As punishment, she was taken to a small island on the lake and a minuscule stretch of rocky soil, devoid of food and shelter, where she was to suffer a slow, excruciating death as her body succumbed to cold and hunger. However, unbeknownst to the rest of the townsfolk, there was a young man amongst them who gazed into the woman's eyes as bright and beautiful in the midsummer moon and vowed his undying love for her. When he was convicted wrongly, When she was convicted wrongly, as he believed, he swore he would never let her suffer. While waiting for the opportunity to abscond with his beloved, every night he would seek out and row across the lake, bringing her food and something to keep her warm. And every night the woman would stand there on the shore, holding a little candle, waiting for him. But then one night, the sky was exceptionally clear, devoid of even a wisp of cloud. The young man set out on his nightly escapade. As a result, he would look out into the distance, looking for the light of darkness that would lead him to his beloved. On that night, however, the moon shone so bright and vibrant, stronger than any candle would. Seeing the light's reflection in the water, the young man was led astray. He rowed and rowed and rowed, following the reflected light, hoping he would reach it. He did not care for his aching arms or shortness of breath, utterly mesmerized by the illusionary light. When his boat tipped over, the man was so exhausted from rowing, so weakened were his arms, he was not able to swim ashore. Thus he succumbed to a watery grave. Although left alone, the woman on the island never lost hope. She kept coming out at night and held a candle. The legend says that those looking for the true love can see the lady's light on the lake shining to bring her beloved home. While the story is clearly meant as a metaphor and a cautionary tale, it is, to a certain extent, rooted in reality, as this area has indeed seen its fair share of religious persecution, such as that of... And it stops. Very good. Right, okay. Waterfoot landscape, right, okay. Good. Oh, look at it. Sure, it's himself.
It's him.
Jesus. A misty day remains of the judgment. I think there's probably a strong possibility a lot of us is in James' head. James's head? James' head. James' head. James Hutchinson. Why would we want to go down here? The Punishers. Ooh. Much like the beloved animal people of Disney World wearing the big foam heads, except this was made of metal and it was pointy and they had a big stabby stab. Stabatha! Yes, it's still going. Should we all be worried? I don't think so. I think it's good to show support on Twitch. I like going into people's chats and seeing like Ready and Flemish and stuff on there. It's good to kind of see the community grow. I didn't like this part. Now I'm getting that sinking feeling. What do you mean you didn't like this part, Tomahawk? You are a man who is used to horror. I don't like the fact that you didn't like this part. Woo! Community! I was being sarcastic. I know, but I was being genuine because I feel...
How are you still alive?
Well, I don't know. I know I'm old as fuck, Claire, but you don't need to point that out. It's like going to the Whitefall stream and seeing Leyoric pop in was a pleasant surprise. I love the fact that I logged on the Whitefall stream the other day, or today was it? And it was just after you joined, and I was able to share your love of Resident Evil 6. September 11th, 1820. I don't know what this is. Oh, we'll just take that needle with us. That could only be good. You know what annoys me about this, right? This is a base unit. This is a PC. But everybody at work keeps calling it a hard drive. I'm like, it's not. Hard drive is part of the computer. That's not a hard drive. And they're like, no, it's a hard drive. I'm like, no. Where the fuck am I? Oh, hello. That's the first bit of combat we found tonight there. Sora's a bit different. What do you mean it's a bit different from the hospital? The hospital was bad enough as it was. We have a map? We don't have a map. I don't like the way you said that. Where the fuck am I? What is... Can I go here? I can't. Crimson and White Banquet of the Gods. Fought them before. Death by Skiri the next... Oh, so this is... Ah, right, okay. Poca prison camp. As long as I don't have to go to the prison, I'll be alright. Have you played Crimson Desert? I love Crimson Desert. It's like ultra close quarters. Oh, right, okay, I don't like that. I love Crimson Desert. I think it's a very, very good game. I don't like that, Tomahawk. This is from the picture earlier. Why is there a hole? Why is there an indicator on the hole? That may not look at. Did they jump down? Fuck's sake. In the game, yes, we will do as it says, but in no circumstance would I ever jump down this hole. I would live in this wee thing for the rest of my life. But even at that, I wouldn't just jump down. I would hang off the ledge and just kind of lower myself as much as possible. Right, okay. Fine, James. Fine. You just do what you want to do. There's a reason he's willing to jump randomly. And I bet you know the reason for that. I mean, you could not jump, but just do it. I know, I could just not. I could just live there for the rest of my life. This room is... It's like a break. We just stared at each other. The leggy monster was like, I am trying to go toilet here. It looks like a couple of these. Sir? Hear me out, hear me out. Did you see the thing? It was like a couple of weeks ago it happened, but there was like an unofficial bungee jump set up in this like abandoned place, and there's just a video of them throwing this woman. They forgot to attach the cord here and just threw her, and for a long time I was like, that must be AI. There's no chance they've actually, but no, the people getting prosecuted and all for it, they just didn't tie the cord there and just threw her off this like bridge. And I was like, oh my god. And it's bad now that everywhere we go, or every time we see something now, that we have to ask, is this AI? Is this real? I don't know what's real anymore. And we have to do it for every bit of media that we see now. Like the amount of GTA 6 videos I've seen over the last week, and I'm like, the only one of them was real. It was the one where they showed the cover. Coming from the water. Yeah, so did I. I thought it was AI, but no, it's been in the news and everything that they're prosecuting them. The police and everything are involved. Right. Oh, this is very expensive. Did you see the Pope's 14-page document against AI? I have not. What's the Pope saying about it? What's the official view of the Catholic Church? Or would that be an ecumenical matter? Something on the ground here. The key. Ooh, bugs. Loads of bugs. Yeah. Away with you. Away with you. Can I leave? Oh, how do I get out? Right, so... There we go. And... what the fuck is it? I don't think this is where it was before. Unless it was where it was before, the door wasn't open. Shit. I don't think I explored over here, though. Over here. Right up there. So I'm going down the big hole. Fine. James, you're making a habit of jumping down these places.
Ready?
What's happening?
I don't have the brains.
Ready? You do have the brains. You do have the brains. You. I don't know why James is doing this. I'm starting to think more and more this man's insane, and a lot of this is in his head. Hey man, already, please give that man a follow. Give him your follows. Now, is my daughter going to come home when she's supposed to come home as well? That's the other question. Will I have to go out to Silent Hill to search for her? I don't know. Well, I'll just read this. A fair bit, but he basically said what you mentioned. It's a shame we can't trust media anymore. The internet is supposed to connect. Yeah, not like yeah, there needs to be some serious regulations, I think, brought on it. Now, do the whales tying up the washing? Like the domesticated? God, you are. I'm very much the same. I think men should know how to cook. They should know how to clean. They should know how to put on a wash. I think it's ridiculous the amount of grown adults that don't know how to clean up after themselves and just be a man. Like there's one fella used to think about me. My God, he was awful at it. Like his wife just became his new mommy. I need to find it and read it properly. He's clearly educated and well enough on the matter. Yeah, well, you know what? From what you're saying so far, it doesn't sound wrong. Like I use AI.
No big deal. Just put the gun to their head.
Oh, Eddie. Launch a Domino's app.
Eddie. Oh.
Pause that a second. I use AI. But it's either for silly stuff or I've been using it quite frequently to collate information. So a lot of the stuff on my stream and stuff I would use AI just to collate information, look at patterns and stuff. But see this whole thing where people are pretending to be artists to release music and sell art. That's just bullshit. There should be tougher regulations on all that.
Hi, James.
What happened here? Who was that?
I don't know. He just came at me.
Okay. So he attacked you.
But they did that. Yeah, that's mental.
Shot him.
Mental,
Yeah.
Thomas. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's right. He made me do it.
Okay, calm down, Eddie. Any idea why he would do that?
I don't know. He came out of nowhere. Tried sneaking up on me in the dark. I heard footsteps, so I turned back and he was right there.
It looks like
And
he was
you
sitting
could
down,
tell
Eddie.
that he wanted to hurt you.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way he looked at me, I just had to do it.
People are using AI videos to fake those drawn over time videos, make it seem like they drew the thing. And I've seen ones as well, people faking playing guitar and stuff, and it's mental. It's great as a tool. Like, it's a phenomenal tool. It's good for analytics and, you know, just doing monotonous stuff that you like. See that one I did earlier, where I took over the past 2 years, I took all the raids and split up everybody's names. You know, that would have taken me hours to do manually, but I just got it to do it for me, and it did it within seconds, which is great, phenomenal, great tool for that. But see, when it starts taking away from the creative process, and people are like, "Oh, I'm going on," or they're going on Spotify and they're pretending the music's like. There's a couple of times I went to Hook. I was like, "Oh, the song's great." And Hook's like, "Joe, that's AI," and I was like, "Oh shit, it is AI." And they're trying to pass it off as a real artist. That's just nonsense. I wasn't on fire and brimstone. AI is a devil. I also read Google lost a case about an AI. The search engine judge basically said people don't need an AI bot to help use a search engine. No, they don't.
He
No.
looked at you.
But then again,
That's how you said he came
Google's
at.
AI has been about.
Yeah, I mean...
They're not. Google's search has been about dodgy anyway, hasn't it?
See it in
Recently,
his
where
eyes.
the more people pay, the higher up the search they go.
His eyes.
Like that cool FM radio DJ.
He kept looking
Yes.
at me, making fun of me. I told him not to, but he didn't listen.
Eddie, you can't.
I mean, that's.
You can't just
fine.
kill someone because the way
I was a
they
big
looked
fan
at
of
you.
Meld Studio when they came out, and like I talked about it quite a bit. But see, recently they added Spark AI, and all their videos just seem to be, type this in the Spark and it'll do the thing. And they're like, you're not being creative or anything anymore. You're not trying to figure stuff out.
You should see your face, too.
It's just throw it under the generator and it'll make it for you, which I don't
joking.
like. Did I point out Eddie's
guy was
breath
dead
when
when
you
I
first
got
saw him?
here.
No, you did not.
I got you, didn't I?
What was wrong with his
Well,
breath?
anyway,
Was he freezing then too?
I better get going.
Wait,
There's that one dude with an accordion. He's making great AI videos.
so you're gonna go out there alone?
Yeah.
But like even with the alerts and stuff that me and Freddy and stuff would do, I'm not the most creative person in the world, but I love making those. I think they're a lot of fun. It's interesting to see different ways people go about doing things. But see if you just type in, "Oh, I want the Resident Evil thing," and it'll just do it for you, and you're just like, yeah, some bullshit. Hey, Al. Ready? I think you've told the joke and I just don't get it. Al. Al. You can be my bodyguard. I can be your long lost pal. That looks like a map. And a rifle. Flamash, there's a rifle. You didn't know about it, but there's a rifle here. Right. And it looks like another massive area. And it's a prison. Ah, so I'd have knew a lot of people like these do rifle rounds, but the owl ones are the best. Weird Al. Right, okay. Ah, right, I get you. That's all the masks. Pelham found him. Since he's a cabinet, you would assume one of the prisoners got his hands on it, right? So I'm not going to get this anytime soon. Wow, what's happening? How sound to the hills? They have gone very, very well. What? How are you getting on? What is the story? What is the crack? Oh, did my daughter's text me back? She has not. Oh, now a lot of these are in at the moment as well. Thank you again, everybody who donated and was helping out with the Relay for Life. Here's a wee picture of today. It was lovely weather. There's me and my aunt. We did 2 hours today of walking around, and the teams are still going now at the moment, but ours was one of the first ones to get it done. Yeah, so Eddie's breath is always visible when you see him, like he's cold. Right, okay. Like a Stone Cold Steve Austin. Eddie comes in here and talks about his 316. Austin 316 says, I just whooped your ass. Do that walk, girl. I did. There was swagger in my step. And you'll notice the guy who's on the table is covered in ice. Ice, baby. Doom, 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 doom. Right, I don't want to go in there yet. Ooh. This is where a lot of shooting happens in here. Pew, 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 pew. Put it up there. Put it up there. Time for confession. Madison 2.0. Bless my father, for I have sinned. Hello? Oh, you gotta get back up before I can get you. Well, that might give you a shout out. And about John Paul as well. She is a fellow Irish streamer, lives in the US at the moment. Plays a variety of different games. What have you played recently? Minecraft? You love a good Resident Evil too. Big fan of their Leon. Very soon getting a new VTuber model, and apparently the main instructions on it is not to make it Raphaelia out of the Rise of Shield Hero. The prisoners do not feel remorse, in fact. They do not feel themselves to be sinful at all. Okay. I wanna swing from the chandelier here. Leon! Now, where did he come out of? Did he open up anything? No, it just slithered in and appeared. Okay, okay. Oh, there's another floor, right, okay. People go fall off me. Cool. Right, let's go. Fucking clickers.
Sorry, we're going streaking.
Cracking deals, welcome on. 7 Stream Sheep, thank you. By the way, things I explained there aren't spoilers, it's just things you notice. Which is nice. Oh, the room's full of pile of bull. Ooh, right, okay, I'm not gonna let you get. Sup? Not much. We were making our way through the halls of the prison in Silent Hill. Because the evil hospital wasn't bad enough. Let's add a prison to the mix. Ooh, right there you go. Oh, was it the one inside the thing? Oh, it was the one inside the cell. Right, okay. Right, okay. I just hear the wriggly ragglies all about me. I want to finish exploring up here a little bit before I go down. What is this room? Oh, this is a fun room. With a save icon, weirdly enough, just right here. The yard. Oh, we're outside. Right, okay. I could not tell I was outside. For the life of me, there was no indication I was outside at all. More squelchiness and noises. I'm not watching the video because of spoilers, but it sounds lovely. What video? What are we doing, mate? Oh, you're not watching my stream? Yeah. Yeah, it's so squelchy. This could literally be on the PS2 now at this point because I can't see fuck all. There's a button in the middle with a wee raised platform. What's this all about? What's going on here? The heaviest weight. Right, okay. Right. One. So there's gallows there as well. What have to do here? What is that? Well, it's not letting me put the weight on there, so I don't know what that's about. Okie dokie. What does this do? Oh, put that on there, right, okay. Oh, there's different weights. And they must open different doors in the prison. So they'll sit you there. There? No. Am I missing one? I'm still missing a weight. Right, okay, I need another weight before I can do this properly. And whatever it is running about behind me. So there was a room earlier that had a bull on the door. I was looking at that. There's a room up there that's in red as well. Is that another save point? Staircase, probably open that later. That's a door. What are you? A bore. Must be wild boring in that room. There's a wall I can burst through. There's loads of nice noises in that chapter. Lovely jubbly. This is all fine. Why did it want me to come in here? Things in this room. Nothing. There's nothing in here. Must be something. Apart from them bullets, that was it. Right, okay. Okay. So, eyeless boar, horns, ox. So making my way around prison. Yeah, I can see the bullshit right there. There's a hole up to climb through. Ah, I see you. Spidey. Alright, we're climbing through the hole. Everybody hold on to your pants. well. Why did I come in here? Just like a shortcut? Is that it? Right, okay. I don't think I really needed it, like, but... Close that door again, so back up this way then. Okie dokie. Apologies, folks, as well, if I'm very, very slowly going about this, but it's kind of a bit freaky. James, can you open the door? No, he cannot. Right, so, door is closed. Right, so I have to move on to the next area then. Vestry. Right. Should I check the cells? It was saying that one of the prisoners had the... What's up that way? That's just the way I went. This bit can be a bit slower. Right, okay. It was saying one of the prisoners had the... key. For the refill. There's an area there I have to go through too, isn't there? Yes. Down the ways. Oh, that's another one. That's right, okay. As long as I know where they all are, so I can go through them then. Why is this room skeleton? Is it because of your man next door? Probably. Remake. Oh, I can get on from the back. Sir, I'm coming in. Prisoner, stand against the wall. I'm the law. What's this? What's this? What's this? Memories, memories of a time long ago. It's weird that the cell can be opened from the inside, isn't it? Alright, okay. No one here. No key, as far as I can see. Right, okay. I think we've explored all of the prison cells. So, we'll go down the stairs then. Forward, then down the fucking stairs. Ah, it's the other door. Right, okay. So one of them I must already be able to open. If I go back and filter with the weights a wee bit. Maybe open one of the doors. Don't know who's out here with me. They're making a lot of noise. Yeah, if I moved you over here, does that mean I get the... Maybe you just you over here? No, it just brings you there. Right, okay. Oh, there was one before. Was it the snake one open? If I go that way, the tiny one. Right, so the snake one is now open. Right, okay. Which is... right, it's on there, and to the left. Go. Where did the door go? Where the fuck's the door? Ah, oh, wrong way. It wasn't something creepy, it was my sense of direction. Next door is here. There's way to... Ah! See, the problem is James doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. Ooh, electrocutioner's chair. Right, okay. It's going to ring and stuff. Ah! I'm sorry. Is that it? Why can they climb walls now? I don't think I gave them permission to do that. Yeah, that's weird. He's taking it very lightly. Listen for a scream and then dodge. I don't like that advice. I appreciate the advice, but I don't like it. Okay, this is the generator maintenance manual. Well, we all remember what happened the last time, right? Okay. Oh, lovely. Jesus Christ. Fucking McCanns.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
How high are them walls? One there, you could probably break through the other side. You okay in there? You good? It's a remover. We can get any better than that. What? What is helmet? What's a stream mover? You don't know why with the jump scares. I did. With the new way I've set them up, it was very difficult to have me have a different volume than everybody else. And there was too many instances where it could have went wrong. That's... You'll be here together. Right? Sammy Kins getting you that knock is hilarious. You can't be talking like, oh no. Except by this.
At Backlash? Backlash. At Backlash.
At Backlash.
Oh.
At Backlash. Backlash.
At Backlash.
At Backlash. At Backlash.
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 You do love that one, don't you, Flamash? Backlash. What happens when you get too sweaty and you have a shower and your back gets all wet? So, I'm glad you enjoyed it. That switch. That warmed me about the fire, doesn't it? It amused me so much because you look so proud in it. I got up a fun time doing it. That is true. Use chair. I'm upset that I can't see these fuckers.
Look at this love.
Big boss, what's happening? Look at this.
Solid snake.
I got them.
No, that is not.
Would a graph help to see these fuckers? I think it would. I think we need a decent graph to shoot us with these motherfuckers. Let them climb the walls. Big boss, what is happening? How you doing? I detested this section. Did you finish this, big boss? I love this one. I love this whole area onwards. None of these are working. And after this, oh, right. Are you playing it currently, or did you just give up on it? The fact that it's sitting there, it's all rare, rare. Oh, that's your man on sale. Nah, just dude, what's wrong with you? Okay, you can just keep doing that, buddy. To be fair, I love the whole game though. I can see why. It is a very good game. The observation room. See you in there. Right, okay. Okay, what's this all about? What's the buttons? What's the buttons? This is not somewhere I can go. Right, okay. Okay. There'll be save point in here as well, which is good. Level save point. Level save point. Nose. Not to be confused with the main character of Bleach, who's Ichigo. Green maintenance level. Just be careful checking your map. There might be a flemish, but he's not happy about it. He doesn't like maps being checked. Right. Maintenance level. Do not use to test before use. I love it being checked. I just like to see the stat for it. I've checked it quite a bit. I've gone through the map quite a bit. I'm supposed to just pick one of these? Or can I do multiples? No, I can just do one. Oh, right, okay. Am I looking to blow this thing? Yes, apparently so. Something is not happy. Oh, it's your man out there. Himself. Oh, it's the other way. Nice one. That's nice. Sick. Good dog. Games. No. The one time I wanted you to heal and not look at the map. back in the original part? A little bit. This room. Yeah. Okay. Well, all the, let's tell me just all the cells are open. Right, okay. I might feel that you're going to loop around and get me. Yeah, there's a... This is a really bad layout for a prison because you can't actually see everywhere within the cell from outside, which would make a lot of shenanigans happen. That's the one I just killed. Well, that happened. Sorry I went so silent there, folks. That is lovely, ominous music. That doesn't freak me out at all. Not even a little bit. Jesus Christ. That sounded like there was someone at my window. The yard room, which I came through. That looks like a person.
But daddy is a state of mind, you know what I'm saying? I'm your dad.
Yep. And it's Father's Day tomorrow, folks, so remember. Explored before. We couldn't get on any of the cells. Right, okay. Now we can. Get all of the ammo. Oh, there's still them fuckers up in the sky. Who are you? Here, still hanging about. So this is my way out then, okay. Seems fine. Seems fine. Never found a key though. Never found a key for the rifle. Check, make sure I'm gonna go blurry everywhere. You will. Oh, put on with some Limnosh. Limnosh! What can I have a self-generalized because a prisoner soon to have been disabled simply stood up and approached the chair without any assistance. From now on, take the most care in reviewing our prisoners' medical histories. You're nowhere near done in here. I didn't think I was. I looked at the map earlier and there was loads of levels to it. Look at that big boss! Thank you very much for identifying that. That is something every man loves to hear. Oh, is this the key for it? Right, okay. Witness checkpoint toilets. Now, call me nuts, but didn't high school or Tom Hawk tell me that there's someone in these bathrooms? No, apparently not. I think this takes me back to where I was before. That's right. I'm going to go in here and grab a rifle. Yay! Rifle. Got a rifle and some ammunition. Nice one. Oh, she's a slow reader. Slow reloader. Easy for me to say. Okay, back to home. Don't want to be prematurely discharging there. I might have saves I have because I've misclicked a couple of times. You know what I might do? I might take a wee break, check to see if my daughter's in, and grab myself a drink. So I'm going to go to my Be Right Back screen. Anybody who has been here before will see that there'll be a voting system comes up. There is 2 games. Exclamation mark vote A for the first one, exclamation mark vote B for this, or 1 for the first one, exclamation mark vote 2 for the second one. And I'll be back in a wee bit. I'll see you then. Boy. You proud of yourself? You proud of yourself? Yes. You are correct. It did revolutionize and popularize gaming. It's not better than Metal Gear Solid, though. It's not a better game. Metal Gear Solid's clearly a better game than it, and you voted against it. And you know what? I would agree Resident Evil's a better game than Mario, but I wouldn't regardless. But I voted against Resident Evil because of what you did. Of what you did, and you know what you did. Right, back to the game. Let's go. Every game that mantle it to the end because of me. It was me, Austin. Right, so I'm going right and then through the very end and out the scales. I don't know which one to do next though. I'm just gonna let you go. Fuck you. I'm kinda hoping I don't have to fight them if I just run past them. Now I'm assuming that's what's out here as well because I can't see them. I'm assuming it's them fuckers. The way accommodations only get you specific areas, so you don't need to think too hard. Well, I do because I am a stupid man. Is there still one more missing? There's still a couple of them missing. Right, okay. Let's see if we can go to the board. No. I could probably go the other way though and go to the bull. Oh no, I can go to the bird. No, I can't go to the bird. Shit. Right. Take you. Or sit you up there. Okay, there he is. It's the boss and Metal Gear. Right, so we have the bull unlocked now. This section goes well with some smooth jazz. Bum 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 bum. Wow 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 wow. Hornless ox, right? So you're on the other side, right? Okay. Old nickname for you? Why were you hornless? Hornless. Why are you hornless for? What is this wobbling towards me? Oh, gee. Let's see the fucker. Right, okay. There's something up in there. No, it's not. It's an empty notepad. What was the point? What was the point in the whole war? Look at you being all legal swab. Oh, there you are.
Tell me what you want. Bitch. Oh.
There we are. Sierra's on to give the dog a treats. Fair
no.
Fair play.
What do you say? Bitch. No. No.
Well done.
I'm not going to give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
Please. 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 Bitch. Please.
I heard an alarm go off and I was like, what was that alarm for? It was for Cleo. Big boss, thank you for checking him, buddy. Party level 175. Oh, these are almost the whole way there too. Close, close. I'm actually glad that's working because I was able to test it on a couple of records, but you don't really know until you know we smirk on her face followed by a redeemed. She knew. Look at the puppers. Look at her. She's a princess. Just a princess. The best girl. She knows I'm talking about her. She knows I'm talking about her too. Tomorrow, me and you are going to get the backyard done. It's going to be nice and sunny, and we're going to spend our day out in the backyard. It'll be lovely. No items, so I need a key for there. That's my plan too. Then I can fuck myself with hay fever. Take an antihistamine. Or an uncle histamine if you need something stronger. Oh. Boss housing. Why is the music so awful in here? And by awful, I mean fucking great. It's scaring me. There's the key to the cell block. Right, okay. Disruption reported. Right, okay. Bathroom barred from the other side. Efforts made to get open. Won't hear anything from the other side. Evening lockup. Right, okay. That's fine. That's fine. I do, but pollen be wild does. I used to get hay fever really bad. I never had it until I was about 18, and then for about 10 years I got it steady, really bad. And I haven't really had it too much since, which I'm glad about. Oh, that's not you, right? Okay. There's the boy, he has returned. Ooh, someone's bled out with the needles in this room. And of course, we take them with us and stab them in their own bodies. Be careful, Cellblock Edge TV shoot. Yep, the comedic timing could kill you. Look, the stairs are clean up. No, I don't think they are. These are different stairs completely. Will we jitter down? Have we look-see? Oh, I was on the other side of here earlier. The bottom floor again. Yes, I was on the other side of this. Right, okay. So I'm assuming this is all going to lead me to another way. Am I being stupid? Was I see? Yeah, there was an Australian here, wasn't it? I don't even know if it was a comedy. I just decided it was because no idea. I was too young to be watching such things. To be young and youthful. I remember it. I remember it well. Back in my day. The rain's freaking out. Oh, it's I guess good enough right over there, right? Okay. This clearly is the other side of smoke. Fucking music, hey, listen to that. I don't think James can actually hear this music, which is good for him. And there. Bullets here. That's the next big cut. What is? Ooh. Jamie didn't find it. You should know this place either. It's too late. I'm going for a walk. Clever boy. Here's your reward. I'm going to pay a visit to a friend. We could both use a bath. Right, okay. The Shiv. Shiv key. Right, okay. Is that the work in the open area? The music. Will be playing on Cool FM next week, the music from this game? Probably will. All the hipsters will be on it. So there was a door to open there. C4. Explosive room it is. Alright, so we can't get through there. Oh, that's the one with the hole in the ground. Fucker! See, it didn't work out well for you now, did it? No, it didn't. You fuck about, and then you find out. You know what? James has seen more pipes in this than Mario has in his entire fucking career. I'm sorry, but anybody that loves Super Mario is an awful plumber. I would never hire him. If he had like a leaky sink or a toilet that wasn't flushing, you wouldn't hire Super Mario. Probably land over just off his face on mushrooms. Hello. It doesn't have a mouth. Why was it making sex noises? That must be the one Tom was on about. Also, why the double stall? It seems weird. Right. I want to go down there. Yeah, I want to explore over this way first. What's the layout of the room? What way is it situated? Right, so the showers is over that way, so this is going to take me around the way. There's going to be someone hiding down over here. Probably. Such is the way of things. Right. I don't like that noise. Right, so that's where it came in. Didn't check this one. And I did not check this one. Buckle in there. Okie dokie. Artichoke. We head towards the shards. Which is fine, except for the murdered nurses lying there on the ground. Changing rooms. I told you, didn't listen. He's here. Well, that seems... I don't like the ammo it's giving me. I don't like that either. Alright, so looking at this next room, it looks like a boss room. Fuck off, Mackenzie, I swear to God. Jesus Christ. I think that's actually worse than the jump scare. This looks like a boss room. Here's squelchings in here. Oh, it's high rips as well. I wonder if my first light training will kick in and I can just 007 fight them. Oh, these guys are dead, and that's gonna... There's a nurse over there. There's frogs over there. Lady. Anybody else? Just her. Right, okay, okay. Are these things eating? They look dead. I safely assume they is dead. Oh, it's giving me too much ammo. I don't like that. Far too much ammunition. This is loads of bugs with a hole. Of course it is. Oh, fucking course it is. Yep, we're going to want to stick our hand right in there, James. Keep her luck, kid. Keep her luck. Stop when you hit the prostate. Oh, you. Okay. Probably did the shotgun for that, but I don't know what they expect. I just was locked in. I heard it. Oh, you're all back up, fuckers. Right, okay. Can I run for it? That was through the skull. We got our last thing with it. They can't follow in here, can they? Ooh. Okay, that was a bit ropey. Check it out. I am going back downstairs. So I can get this. Okay. And back up to the yard. I'm going to save as well when I get to the scales because it's been happening. It's been going down. I am absolutely puckered this entire game. Like my arse cheeks are just, they're glued together at this point. Nope. James looks fine. Looks okay. He looks like he's handled it well. Maybe there's going to be some massive boss fight here. What's these about? Like, what's supposed to happen up here? Something connects to that. I don't know what yet. You'll see. I imagine I will, saying I'm playing the game. I think that's the point of it. That I will in fact see. So I am to go to the party one now. Is that just everybody on this one? No. So I take you off and I take the wee one off. It's highlighted, but not at the same time.
Sorry, we're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on,
Lazy.
everybody!
What's happening? How was the walk back, man? The walk went really well. I don't know, I'm deep in concentration here, Lazy. Walk went well, man. It lovely day for it. The 2 hours, and it was really nice to see everybody. It was a good cause. Yeah, the board is in. Which is straight ahead. Straight ahead. Wingless Dove is the last one, I'm assuming, so that's maybe the way out, hopefully. Oh, we got company. How is your day then, Lazy? How was the rest of your stream? Very good. Good idea. Was a good idea, but to be honest, the weather wasn't great yesterday, so I'm glad of it today. Wore a hat so my bald head wouldn't get sunburned. Always good. These are all fine noises. These are all good noises. What are you waiting there for? Jesus. Your mom was in a hurry. Great crack. I was mad sleep deprived, so logistics were there. I was lurking a bit earlier. You were doing a bit of a co-op Elden Ring. Oh, crack was not dead. It seemed that way, man. It seemed that way. I need to figure out which direction I'm going. Take this. A series of steps over here. What is this game, man? Oh, hello. Here is open. But is anybody hiding? Potentially. Potentially. Right, okay, let's go. If I die in here, I only have myself to blame. We're slowly making our way through here, Lizzie. I'm finding all these wee pictures. I don't know what they do. I'm assuming it's just like some sort of wee collectible. There's probably no point in coming up here because there's nothing. No ammo or anything. Oh no, there is ammo. I don't know, such a slow burn game, isn't it? This game is horrific. It's not the scariest game I've played. That would still be Madison. Madison still wins that one. But it's definitely up there. It's not as like Resident Evil at the very start is a little bit freaky, and then once you get used to it and used to the weapons and the combat, you're grand. But this is a bit more fucking psychological. Heavy on the psycho, not so much on the logical. Is someone going to smash their way through the glass? Probably. Can I do it preemptively? No. Probably from here. Guards think we're lepers now. They don't know, but they will stay away. I don't complain. Cool beans. Cuckoo. And here, which is always good. Always good. Why did they heap ammunition on the side with the prisoners? Who the fuck? Or was this the visitors? Is this the visitor side? Yeah, it might be actually. Yeah, I know I'm probably exceptionally slow at this game, but you know what? I'm taking my time. I'm enjoying it. I'm exploring. I'm learning as I go. I hate them wee bugs because they set off me. Anything. There's guys over there being shenanigans. Toilets yet again. Probably guy in there who poops. Jesus. The fuck? What was that? Jesus Christ. Normally, the room that you save in as well as a safe room, but they're going to get me with one of them as well. They're going to get me with one where it isn't actually safe anymore, and you just die. I started doing it as well the other night, where I started playing Fantasy VII Remake again, only because I want the VOD for it. I never recorded it with the VOD the last time. Or I never uploaded the VOD after I played it last time because I wasn't doing it at that point. He locked himself in, took the key. No, let's see, what's up spare, right? Okay. Reap what you sow. Hey, hi, farmer. Let's run this guy. Whoop, whoop. That was being creative. Or not creative, but preemptive there. Prisoners are sick. They're sick. Here, Senor Squelchy. There we go. I'm gonna move it from forward. Oh, hello, lady. There. Fucking. I don't like that show. Change the channel. Ah. No. There we go. Much better. Where's that thing? Just like the name. Right, okay. There's this one. Been here. Been there. Right, okay. Cool. Cool. What are we doing? We're having a wonderful time. Can I please get out of here? Why did you do it with all you loaded there? Well, let me at the door, Jim. Batman! Right, okay. Got it. Ammo. I wonder if it's the same sort of thing as the likes of Resident Evil, where depending on how well you're doing, it decides, you know, how much ammo you get with each pickup. Is it RNG based, or is it actually a set amount for each one? I don't believe so. So you think it's just a set amount? So like one location, if it has 2 bullets, it will always have 2 bullets. Yeah, I think it does. Never looked at it, but every playthrough feels somewhere. Right, okay. Makes sense. It is Key. John Key, is it? None of the... None of the examined show any clinical sign or symptom of life-threatening illness or contagious or otherwise. Right, okay. This looks fine. Right, so I make my way back, and then there's them stairs. Okay. What the fucking noise is? Squelch, squelch. Yes, it's just right in the corner. Something's gonna pop out and murder me. How's it going? It is both good and horrendous. Good and horrendous. It is. We're in a prison now. And I don't even think we're in the bad prison yet. You wait, normally lets you go through the game in the normal world, and then the other world, the Silent Hill world. I think we're still in the normal one. Do you want to know? I think my perception's safe enough. I think I've already figured it out for the most part. Yeah, you run away. You being afraid of me. This takes me back into the main prison again. I think we're at the same part now, right? Okay. And this is where Tomahawk said, nope. Typewriter in there. Must be Resident Evil. Resident Evil. Putting up this game now. Shall we race? That'd be good, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? I think you'd beat me because I'm very, very slow at this. I'm slow, methodical. Taking my time, reading things. The box on the counter, which... That's your right there, right? Okay. Save point in here. I would have expected someone to jump out at me there. Typewriter. Read. 6666666. Right, okay. Oh, I have to type something. I'm assuming what I have to type is sick. Oh, lost weight. Cool beans. Right, Flamash is a loser. Right, so I'm just going to map my way out here now, right? So down the stairs. Take me there. Back round to the main prison. No. No, I can go to the main prison from here, can't I? Yeah, I think so. Lights are flickering. That's not good. Oh, look at the crucifix up there. I haven't seen that the last time. Oops, I've seen you. Not too late. Right. So out here, and then to the right, to the right of the stairs. Right, okay. In the game, I'd whoop you both. In this game, yeah, in this game you would. Yeah, you would. Oh, no. Why can't I get out there? opened this previously? Oh, Hornless Ox is closed, that's why. Right, okay, I get you. So, more of it then. Lovely noises. Just go right. Blam, blam. Sierra knew what I was going for. Right, so we now have our last wait. So we have to get the bird. You heard the bird about the word. The bird. There we go. So apologies, I didn't hear you, but do you want to know if you're in the real world or the other world? I think I'm in the real world now at the moment. Then normally it goes through that trend where you're in the real world at the start, then the other world. It does seem a bit horrific, but at the same time it's a prison, so it could actually just be this bad. Nope. Nope. I'm assuming there's a much worse version of this. Well, that's... Oh, it's a point of no return kind of thing. Right, okay. That seems horrible. Yeah, so that's the thing. I'm assuming I'm still in the real world because the prison and prison's fucking shit.
This is the worst!
Hatter, TTV, it is the worst. It fucking really is. Right, so another floor of prison to get through. Right, okay. There was something else over here, though, wasn't there? Oh, okay. But saying you assume isn't answering yes or no. Do you want it? No, don't tell me. You are a wily pedantic wee fucker, aren't you? Dear, fair play. Sir, fair play to you for putting up with him. That's what I want to know. Being the worst gameplay ever. Graphics are shite, especially if you wear glasses. Oh, happy days, Superman. Woman in flight. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. We're exactly the same point. So you currently playing this now as well, Tomahawk? Right, so we've done there, so go that direction. Well, that doesn't seem like a very comfortable room. You spoiled several things for me too. Yeah, he's a wild man, isn't he? Fuck. You deserve this room. I wonder if it wants Jeremy to walk on here. You back up! You fucker. Is there a black person here? I know the meme you're on about. Yeah, Mrs. Hom had to go to bed, so I thought I'd crack on. Nice. No point of this room. I keep checking my map just in case it marks something that I missed. A couple of locked doors I have to get on later. Here's some squelching. There's a ladder going up. Oh, maybe that's the next part. Right, I'll continue exploring before I go on and do that. But why? Why is there a ladder going up? And does this just open anyway? No. Right, okay. Okay, okay. Okie dokie. Look at you. Waiting for me. Jeez. Yeah. Two of them acting shenanigans on me. Tell you what, there's a lot of ammunition lying about this prison. No wonder they had problems with the prisoners. Like, how did the prisoners get so well armed? I don't know. Did you leave bullets lying around all the rooms? Yeah, I did, but, you know, I didn't think it'd be an issue. I wonder where you went. Hmm? Do you happen to spy a 5th edition D&D book behind me? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Just check. So a few D&D books up there. The Monster Manual, Player's Handbook, and Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, normally I would just use the digital versions anyway, but I seen them cheap online a couple months ago. Because although they have all the online stuff and D&D Beyond and things, it is nice to have the physical copies as well. I like the paper feed. I was actually planning to cut it with my pipe for some fucking reason. I held down the aim button. I like smelling books. Yeah, I know what you mean. A brand new book as well. It smells nice. Fuck. What the fuck was that? There's a coil over here. That's shame down the judge. Do you not like the smell of a book, Plum Plum? Oh, smelly book's nice. Due to the reason has been transferred and sold confinement. Yes, thanks, right, okay. So is this going to be the switch that opens them other doors? Or are you just mucking about? Alright. And you sitting on the shelf doesn't count it. Don't try it too much. Yeah, you don't have your shelf to blame. Close it. Actually, should I open both of them or just one at a time? I feel like it's going to be something horrible comes out of it. That opened at 6, wasn't it? Not you, it's the next one. I'm so sorry, I'm sorry, I couldn't let take you, and now you're still here, aren't you? Yes. Ooh, another whip. Okay. Fuck. Fuck. Well, that's not good. Hello? Anybody there? I need to answer this. think I'll open the other door now. Was over there, wasn't it? It was. I don't know why I'm locking them. I just don't trust them both being open at the same time. Also, does it matter what order you go into these rooms? I don't know, was anything in here? I've got the weight anyway. That's the main thing. So, if I make my way... Oh, I can't go back that way? Oh, I can go through the ladder, though. I discovered over here. Assuming this takes me to the next part. Yeah, tripping will be a big ouch. So, okay, do you just bring me back to the main part of the prison then? It would appear so. Right, so where am I? I need to go this way. Why are they all dead? Why is fucking everything dead? What killed them? Is that what happened when I was locked in that room? Something murdered everything? Oh, it's all lit up now. Shit. Alrighty. Alrighty then. The lightest way. And I'm assuming if they bounce these, they get it to the middle? Does this go in the thing that's up here? The execution lever? Right, okay. What is this? What were the reasons, you might ask, to allow me to unmask? I see, I crave, I need, I take, because all the senses I need to make. Oh, right, okay. Something maxes up. For your grace, I do not plead for the flames. I did set free. My sister shrieked, but the children cried, and none made it out alive. Well, that's fun. Put legs to the walk. Have you seem like you're there? What's this next one? The wealth and knowledge I did not take. The seventh salute I did not break. And yet my deeds I don't regret. What about you? Okay. What's in burn worse than cry? Is there something about wealth here? Feeds my greed. Yes. You seem about right. I took the child. Took it right. Carried her off into the night. She did not scream. She did not bawl. I was her father after all. Well, maybe you could that one though. Maybe you're that one. Broke my legs, I couldn't walk. I pulled my teeth, I couldn't talk. Is there anything about that? Curious. I watched them burn, I hear. No, I need to go with the top one. Right, okay. Once the sun ceased the rain, I cut through the rusty chain. I pushed the door and filled my pockets to the brim. like they'll have some smooth jazz playing during this section. I would imagine so. Like pierce through your heart. Yeah, I think you were there. Is there anything we can do? Any other clues? It's welcoming. Look at you picking the title already. Check it in the ledger. Level 238. Level 8. Lancer. I wondered if abandonments depend on the fact that do you want to know? I also messaged you on Discord. He's a wild man for spoil. He loves to spoil things, doesn't he? I'm over there.
Sorry, we're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
My crime. The man appeared. He saw me knock the bloody end is what he got. No. 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 This is shooting children crime. None made it out alive. Is there anything to do with fire? Yes. Like you're up there. Which means these two are kind of... Won't spoil unless you say yes, tell me. I hope there's 1,000 touch that there is. You have to multiply by 1,000, you see. Waited long not to crown that my crown. I waited to crown my crown, so what he got. Are you here? I don't know then if that's the right ones. It hasn't done anything, so I'm assuming it's not. No! Oh. I think that one's right. The well? Is there any indicator whether I've got it right or not, though? And I don't leave the poor guy hanging. He's just hanging out. Just grand, it's fine. The wealth of others I did not take. The 7th slit I did not break in regret. Part of the 3 case having not left a single trace. No, you actually might be here. Yeah, that might be it. Oh, that's something has to happen here then. Oh shit. I didn't know it was going to happen. I got fucked up. Where the hell? Come on up. Dirty bastard. Damn, this is hell. I know. I don't even know. Is this because I've done it wrong? Have I fallen in here because I've done it wrong? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in that puzzle. I hate the way the light button is the same as aiming. I know there are several rooms without going into detail, right? Okay. Right, is there any more ammo or anything about here before I go? Over here. And we lift it. Right, so. Alright, there's a ladder. Where does this take me? Just drops me in various rooms in the thing. Take that back out here. Fuck. Right, okay. Tell you what, though, one thing this place isn't is lacking in real estate. I know the place is massive. How do I know which one I'm supposed to take, though? Like, what's the clue to get through this? Check 3. Am I supposed to find what, like James? Are these all people's stuff from crimes? Now have to find James's crime. Child, further off, which does not bring no. Not here, swimming not. No. Fuck. Look, seriously, my god. The worst bit is there's a window right there beside me and it sounds like somebody's knocking on it. My god, man. Like, does it matter if these are matched up or not? And, you know, as long as you pick the right gallows. It's James. He's saying hello. He's... After all, forgive me, child, for I have failed. The man appeared. He saw me not. What he had is what he did. Sorry I've been so quiet. Laughing about here doing butts while you're in the telly. The rain is pure ASMR. Yeah, the rain is, but the rest of it is not. Not for me, it's so deep. I went for your heart. No. What's the sun? Love me some rain. If you want to tell me just which one it is, because I don't know which one I'm supposed to be doing. I don't even know if I have these lined up right. I'm beating the window. No. Well, I should be the man for that. You know what? I'm just going to do it. Okay. I have no shame. That's randomized for each playthrough. To find the justified convict, there are always two correct justified prisoners. The man who killed his abuser and the thief stealing medicine. Right, okay, two justified people have to find. It didn't tell me that. Right, so that seems like one of them. So we'll see. We'll see. And this is a particular order of the one as well. Nope, fell down the hole. I was just saying, if you just know the solution, just tell me. Better fill these fucking holes. Better fucking down the holes. The thing said it's randomized each time as well. But then again, I read the thing and it said, oh, it's randomized each time, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. So you matched up the solutions? I don't know. I have no idea. Depending on your difficulty, it's also randomized codes. I know. I should match them up with the crime. Yeah, but how are you supposed to know? I think I have. There's a chain. Right, so it wasn't that one. Your love for me was so deep, but why, oh why, I should have through when I left your shit. Oh, so is this the one that is in self-defense? Difficulty standard? I could just brute force it, couldn't I? I think you got it right, okay. That was a different animation there. Yeah, I'm on a different location now. No, the door seems shut. Ah, another hole. Lovely. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if this can be the real world with the amount of these imaginary holes James keeps jumping down. Games on potential puzzles. It's not the worst. Song of Horror is a game we played earlier in the year, and the puzzles in that made no sense. Even when you knew the solution, it made no sense. Just fucking random. That's a nice noise, isn't it? Oh, another hole. Wonderful. Must be a bathroom. That was me with Silent Hill app as well. Yeah, you were the same with that. Never played that one. It's not. It's an interesting game. You have several characters you can choose to play from, and when one dies, you have to switch to another one. But the previous ones can also haunt you and stuff as well, and it's a weird one, but it's a good premise. It's just I got fed up with the end up because it was just McKinnon's telling me the solutions to the puzzles, and even then I was like, these make no sense. And he was like, yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, even though I would have solved it, I still don't understand the solution. Yeah. I hate it when they do that. I like it. The game makes sense. That one, I had no idea if they matched up. I was just. See, by the end, I was just going to brute force it and just start rubbing through each one of them. But I am quite low at the minute, which I don't like. There seems to be it is. It's really safe. It's really safe. It's a safe elevator. That happened. Where the fuck am I now? Somebody's whispering. I'm assuming none of these doors work. I'm just gonna have to just go through this area. This one isn't bad, literally just match them up with the crimes and you have to pick the one that's justified. This looks like somebody, the one I picked was the one, it seemed like somebody killed someone in self-defense. A wee note for you to read back there. Oh, back here? Inside here? No. No. On the door? No. Other end. You're the other end? Other end of what? Here? No, what? On the floor? Ah, right, okay, I just went completely past it. Right, so, body of a man, later identified as Thomas Oro, lumberjack, 39, was discovered from Lanfa. Probable cause of death was stab wounds to the front of the neck and the side of the torso by sharp edged weapon. Estimated time of death was somewhere between 11 and 12:30. Signs of struggle to remove lack of murder weapon. Police are considering a homicide. Okie dokie. Where's TV? No TV for you. Channels. And that's everything. Thomas Orsoko. You went past it. Thomas Orsoko. No, it didn't. It just said Thomas Oro. Accountants. Yeah, good snacks. None? Fuck all. None for the yes. Yes, but Orsoko. So you just spoiled the name again. Jesus, Flemish. Sarah, control that man. Fucking wild man. He has to show how much he knows. It won't be revealed. Well, definitely won't be now. Spoilers, we already know.
Please. I'll be good, I promise.
It's important, I'll explain after this section. Jesus Christ, you're a wild man. Hey.
Tell him
I'll
be good, please.
Angela?
Oh, is she the justified person?
Angela, it's me.
Oh, she had that knife earlier too. She stabbed somebody. Or did I?
No. Please.
No, she's not. Fox, will you? Shush. I'm talking out loud here. I'm not looking for answers.
Daddy!
Well, listen. Oh. Run away. Yes, you're the reason this is no longer cool down. By far one of the most disturbing things in this. Yeah, it looks like a bed and 2 people on it. More than most people realize. Creepy. Shoot him in the ass. Look, would you mind if you can? Pause them ads. Yeah, it's pretty dark. That is. Like it just cries out abuse, doesn't it? And it explains the reactions from that week earlier. So I'm going through here. I don't know if it wants me to use a rifle. I seem to do okay with the shotgun there. I'm more looking. No, I'm just going to sneeze these ads. I'm more looking to kill this bastard now, just. Running from me as well. Her wings terrified. don't know if I'm supposed to go this way. Maybe I was.
Makes you sick.
Motherfucker, I shot your TV. Oh, fucker. Go away. That's where he went. I'm sick of my shotgun, this one. Right, through the hole. Here, I get you creepy cunt. You're all scared, folks. That's what's happening. This is where the Wayne had. Sick. This is like a B footage in Cowboy Builders. It is 3 months later in Cowboy Builders. It's when they return and see the place is an absolute mess. Yeah. Take a look at this. Yeah, we need to do some work in here at least. This is a shambles. I don't know what the big fan's about though. So to be honest, I'm not even. This is building up feelings of anger more than fear at this point. Fuck your TV, brother. Fuck your TV. As a parent, like this is making me so angry. This guy, and I just want to beat the living fuck out of him. Here yet? Right, bro. Oh, very nice. Spillways down here, right? Let's hold it. This looks like a boss arena. This is where you die, man. I'm just letting you know now. This is where you need to be, you fucker. actually just fully reload that gun, that would be super fucking super. Oh, he's running. I got me. Yeah, 2 people on the bed frame. God, fucking creepy old bastard.
Okay, Angela. It's okay. Calm down.
Don't order me around!
I'm not. It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
Try what?
Like you don't know? I see what you're doing. It's always the same with you. You're only after one thing.
Angela, please.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead. Say it. Or you could just force me.
Jesus.
Like he always did. You disgusting pig. I hate you. I hate you.
Angela. I don't know who you think I am, but I don't want to hurt you.
I'm curious behind people's heads this thing went over.
I just
thought it
want
was
to get
getting
my
obvious.
Mary back.
You're Mary. Your own little Mary. At least she was. For a while.
So you just keep blasting through, not focusing on the actual story. The story's phenomenal.
Admit it.
It's twisted, but great. Like Alan Wake.
You didn't want her around anymore.
We're skipping cutscenes, yeah. Oh, right, okay.
No.
I know he said she was
Probably
sick.
found someone else.
No.
Fuck you, ads. Music
I need to
the
find my
sound design in
mama.
this game is A-star, like best tier. Does she think he killed his wife? Because she was sick?
I never.
Okay. Music's fantastic. That is. Any ammo? How are we out of the prison? It's just going to take us back into the prison. I want to go through these couple of rooms. That's the first room we came into. Bastards. Whoa, right, okay, what's this? That doesn't look good. Labyrinth center. Right, okay. Okay, there's a save point here as well. So we're not in Kansas anymore, I don't think. Everything sounds great. A perfect balance of emotion, tones, intense music. It is, and even the enemies and stuff, you can hear them, and they're creepy, and doesn't show you them straight away, and sometimes nothing shows up, and it's very good. Abstract Daddy present. Both are brother and father. Right, okay. Okay. I think we made some burning progress, not tonight. So the way it's going to work, all things being well, Tuesday night. Yeah, Joe. So Tuesday night should be Resident Evil 6 co-op. Octopus, thank you very much for calling in. Thank you for checking in. It should be Resident Evil 6 co-op with me and Hook. Wednesday night should be Resident Evil 2 speedrun training, and then more Silent Hill on Thursday and Saturday. That is the plan. That is the plan. Spooky's too much. No 12-hour stream. No 12-hour stream. No. But I actually like the way I got through that section, and now we've moved on to what I feel is another part of the game. Really, really good. Like the game is really like stepping up, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. Like it's multifaceted, this game. I think it's quite good. I'm going to see who we have built the raid now as well, because I'm going to keep this party going. Thank you so much, everybody who came in tonight. You absolute legends. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for checking in. Thanks for the chats. Thanks for the gigantified emotes. Glad you're enjoying it. I had it on my screen there, so I saw nothing. I'm now running the labyrinth. Oh, so you're still ahead of me. Happy hours, thank you very much. Enjoy your nightmare tonight, dude. I will. Thank you for the stream. Thank you, folks. You're all absolute legends. I appreciate everyone who's coming on. Look at him sneaking on, getting a wee factory there at the end. What a man. What a man. Let's see. You know what? Will we check and see if there's anybody
at Backlash? Backlash. At Backlash.
At Backlash.
At Backlash.
Let's see if we've anybody.
Backlash.
I can see me playing it.
At Backlash.
At Backlash.
Backlash.
At Backlash.
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 It's been a while.
This guy's called Shaquille Oatmeal 1999. What we're going to do is we're going to raid them because they are playing Silent Hill 2 at the moment. I think, I don't know if they're further than me or I'm further than them. Oh, I'm a bit further than them. So we're going to call him. Thor needs his walkie, so you're dipping, no bother. So we're going to, I think we have a fair idea if we beat the boss or not tonight anyway. I'm going to start the raid up. I'm going to pop in my raid message and it's going to come up now. We did not beat the boss tonight, but it's good that the progress bar is actually picking that up properly, which I quite like. So I'm going to start this raid off. If you folks want to call in and say hello, it'd be much appreciated. I'm going to hang about a bit as well and watch some more Spookies and Silent Hill. Like I said, we'll be back on Tuesday with me and Hook playing Resident Evil 6, and then I'll see you for Resident Evil 2 on Wednesday. Have a good night. Chat to you later. Bye-bye.